What if blondes never existed? Before we begin, remember to subscribe. The world is full of strange possibilities, and you don't want to miss the ones that bend reality itself. It sounds like a silly thought experiment at first, the kind of question tossed around during a late-night conversation. What if blondes never existed? Yet, when we start pulling on that thread, history itself begins to unravel in curious and unexpected ways. Because blondes, whether celebrated or mocked, have been more than just people with lighter hair. They have been symbols, archetypes, cultural shortcuts. Remove them, and entire myths, industries, and even psychological assumptions crumble. Ancient times without sunlit hair. Imagine the ancient world without blondes. The Greeks spoke of gods and mortals with hair like sunlight. Helen of Troy herself was often depicted with golden locks, a living metaphor for divine beauty. But if blondes had never existed, Helen might have been remembered differently, perhaps with deep black hair shining like polished obsidian, or copper curls blazing like fire. Her myth would change. Her face would not have launched 1,000 ships in the same way. The Romans adored blondes too, not only because of their rarity but also because they associated them with the exotic northern tribes they encountered. Roman women often wore wigs made from the hair of captured Germanic slaves. Without blondes, this entire fashion industry evaporates. No golden wigs, no Roman fascination with barbarian lightness. Instead, perhaps raven black hair from the East would have become the prized trophy of conquest. And the Norse sagas? They would be rewritten. Without the shining-haired warriors, the very language of heroism would alter. Thor and Freyja, who were described with light hair, might be pictured instead with fiery red or deep brown. The Viking image we hold today, golden beards catching the northern sun, would dissolve into something darker, stormier, less radiant. The Middle Ages and Renaissance reimagined. In medieval Europe, blondes were woven into religious art. Angels, saints, and holy figures often bore golden halos and golden hair, symbols of purity and divine light. Without blondes, how would artists have painted heaven? Would the holy have been crowned with raven locks instead? Or would purity be represented by something other than hair at all? Perhaps by the whiteness of garments or the glow of pale skin. Renaissance painters like Botticelli, who gave us the birth of Venus, celebrated blonde beauty as the ultimate ideal. Without blondes, Venus would have risen from the sea with darker hair, reshaping centuries of Western standards of beauty. Entire palettes of paint might have been used differently. Art history would be darker, richer, less sunlit. The modern world without blonde archetypes. Fast forward to the 20th century. The modern myth of the blonde takes center stage in film and advertising. Marilyn Monroe, Grace Kelly, Brigitte Bardot. Their blonde hair wasn't just part of their look. It was their brand. Remove blondes from history, and Hollywood's landscape changes forever. Who becomes the face of glamour? Perhaps the sultry brunette, the fiery redhead, or the mysterious black-haired starlet takes over as the universal standard. And without blondes, one of the most persistent cultural stereotypes vanishes too, the dumb blonde. That joke, cruel, lazy, repeated endlessly in pop culture, would never have existed. Humanity, of course, would invent another stereotype. Maybe the scatterbrained redhead, maybe the naive brunette, but the entire flavor of humor and insult would be altered. Advertising campaigns would also look different. Shampoo commercials, hair dye brands, entire industries built on selling platinum blonde looks would never have been born. Walk into a supermarket in that world, and the shelves would lack their shimmering golden shades. No ice blonde, no honey blonde, no champagne blonde, just the darker spectrum of dyes. Science and psychology in a blondeless world. Science, too, would notice the absence. Geneticists in our reality can trace blonde hair back to mutations in the MC1R and other genes, particularly among populations in Northern Europe. If blondes never existed, it would mean those mutations never occurred or were lost early in human history. Evolutionary theories about adaptation to low sunlight, vitamin D synthesis, and sexual selection would take different shapes. Psychologists have long studied how people perceive blondes versus brunettes. In experiments, blondes are often rated as more approachable, more youthful, sometimes less competent, sometimes more desirable. Without blondes, those studies wouldn't exist. Entire fields of social science would shift focus, because one of their most iconic case studies in bias would be missing. Even linguistics would feel the absence. Phrases like blonde ambition, blonde bombshell, or better blonde than never would never enter the dictionary. Our languages would be different, our jokes different, our metaphors missing a shade. The deeper truth. But perhaps the most revealing insight is this: humanity would always find another way to divide and define. If blondes had never existed, culture would simply elevate another group as the symbol. Maybe redheads would become the eternal object of fascination and mockery. Maybe brunettes would carry the weight of stereotypes about purity or foolishness. The human imagination demands contrast, demands archetypes, demands someone to worship and someone to ridicule. So the question isn't really about blondes at all. It's about us. What do we do with difference? Do we mythologize it? Do we commodify it? Do we weaponize it in jokes and prejudices? Remove one color from the spectrum, and the meanings don't vanish, they just get painted onto another shade. And so, in this alternate universe without blondes, the world would look the same yet utterly different. Art darker, history rewritten, pop culture reshaped. But human nature, that part would never change. If you enjoyed this glimpse into an alternate reality, don't just wonder what else could have been. Subscribe, because the strangest universes are the ones we invent when we dare to ask, what if?